This is the second video for Unit 1, which is 1.2, solving multi-step equations. Okay, so we're going to go over a few basic definitions and terms before we do any examples. Okay, so objective, I can solve multi-step equations with and without distribution. Okay, so first we're going to talk about like terms. So like terms are terms that have the same variable and the same power. But mostly for this unit, this semester, we're going to focus on same variable, okay? Which means that they have the same letter. While the second one is true, but we won't actually need to do any problems like that until next semester. So we're focused on the same letter. Okay, so things that have variables, so these x's are both variables. That means that these 4x, and make sure that when we're circling them, that we need to circle the operation that's in front of it. Whether you think of this as a subtraction or a negative, it doesn't really matter. We just have to make sure that we apply it to that term. So if I was to combine 4x minus 2x, I can actually add and subtract those because they are like terms. So 4x minus 2x will leave me with a 2x, okay? One thing to also note is that all constants, which we talked about last class, all constants are like terms because I am able to add and subtract any number. So it doesn't matter if the number is positive, negative, a fraction, or a decimal, I am able to add those together. So right now we have a positive 7 and plus 3. So if I was to add 7 plus 3 equals 10. So make sure that whenever you're combining like terms that you use the symbol, the sign that's in front of your term. And you would put that in like the calculator if you need to calculate it exactly as it is. Don't add any extra steps. So the first one is 4x minus 2 because there's one negative, and then 7 plus 3 because there is one positive there. And then the next term is to distribute. So when we distribute, we multiply all the terms inside the parentheses by whatever number is outside the parentheses. So first example here, this 2 is outside the parentheses. So we're going to multiply it by this x and by this 3. And just something to note, even though this x doesn't have a variable, it doesn't have a coefficient in front of it, it always has a coefficient of 1 that is invisible, okay? I'm sorry, that kind of looks bad. Let's redo this. So it has an invisible 1 right here. And you don't always have to write it, but sometimes it kind of helps people see, oh, I need to multiply 2 times 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, and then it's going to have an x with it. And then 2 times a positive 3 gives me a positive 6. And then for this next example, so I only have a negative in front. So when that happens, just know that I have an invisible 1 right before this parentheses. So what I'm actually distributing is a negative 1. So I do negative 1 times 5x and negative 1 times negative 7. So negative 1 times 5 gives me a negative 5, and then with the x, and then make sure that I'm multiplying that negative 1 by that negative 7. Make sure that, again, that I'm including the sign that is in front of that second number. That is a very common mistake. Some students might put a negative 7 here because they're thinking, oh, negative 1 times 7. But this is actually negative 1 multiplied by a negative 7, okay? A negative times a negative will give us a positive. So this ends up being a positive 7. Okay, and this is pretty much the solving process for solving multi-step equations. So first, distribute any outside terms to all terms inside the parentheses. This is only if you have parentheses, okay? If you don't have parentheses, then we don't have to do this step, okay? Parentheses is actually plural, okay? But only if you have parentheses. These steps must be done in order, but if something doesn't apply, then you can skip that step, okay? Next is combine like terms on the same side of the equal sign. So for instance, if I have 2x and 3x on the same side of the equal sign, ooh, that's ugly 6, okay. First thing I want to do before like adding and subtracting across the equal sign, I want to first combine these, okay? I want to add those together. It makes you have less steps and it simplifies the problem. The next is to move variables by adding or subtracting to one side of the equation. Usually you can move it to the left if you always want to have the same step, but it doesn't really matter what side you move it to. Just know that these two steps here, if you move your variables to the left, then you have to make sure that you move your constants to the right, and then vice versa. If you decide to move your variables to the right, you have to move your constants to the left. These steps are actually, it doesn't matter which one you do first. So either can be done first. I just typically like to move my variables first and then my constants. And then last, multiply and divide by the coefficient. So if you remember, your coefficient is the number that is in front of your variable. So this number here, okay? So if it's being multiplied, then I would divide it. If you have something that's a fraction, then that's when I have to multiply. So we're going to do 5 examples, and we're going to use this process of solving in all those examples. So you can kind of see the different steps. Okay, so for this first example, remember our first step is to distribute, and I put all of the letters here so you can see. So since we don't have any we don't have any parentheses, we don't have to distribute. So we don't have to do this first step. Next one is combine like terms. Do we have any like terms on the side? So let's see. If I draw my line, it helps me split my sides. So I can look first at the left side and see, do I have any like terms? So I have a 10 here. Do I have any other things that are just numbers? Well, yeah, I have this negative 10 as well, okay? And then now let's look at what else I have on this side. So I have something with a W, so I have 15W. Do I have anything else with a W on this side? Yes, I have this negative 2W. Okay, now I can combine these like terms. And as I said before, when you're calculating these, you just want to do exactly what the sign says in front of that number. So this is 10 minus 10, okay? 10 minus 10 is 0. So that means that those 10s will go away. And I don't necessarily have to write that on my next step when I rewrite my problem. And then combining these two, I have 15W minus 2W. And that's exactly what I'm going to put in the calculator as far as those numbers. 15 minus 2. So 15 minus 2 is 13W, okay? Then now, so I'm making my new line once I do that, and then I need to bring down this negative 13 on this side. I don't really need to check the second side for like terms because I only have one number there. Okay, next is to move variables to one side of the equation. Well, I only have one variable and it's already on the left, so I don't have to move any variables. And then next one is to move my constants to the other side. Well, same thing. I only have one constant and it's already on the correct side. So I don't need to do that step either. And then next is to either multiply or divide the coefficient. So my coefficient here is 13. So since it's being multiplied by the w, I'm going to divide 13 on both sides. Once I divide, these 13s will cancel to 1. Will simplify to 1. Then I'm left with a w on the left side. And then negative 13 divided by 13 is a negative 1. Make sure that when you're dividing a negative by a positive, that your answer is a negative. Okay, let's look at example number 2. Now, this example looks a little different, but just because it have decimals, we're still going to solve it the same way. If you're using the calculator to add and subtract, multiply, divide your decimals, just make sure that you're typing it in correctly. The biggest mistake I see with decimal problems is that students will put in the decimal in the wrong place, forget a 0 or add a 0. So just make sure that you double check that you're putting it into the calculator correctly. Okay, so same as the problem before, there's no distribution, so we don't have to distribute. I want to do that first step. Okay, now we're going to look for like terms on either side. So I have something with an x here, and I have something with an x here, and I have a 25. Let me give that a triangle by itself. So the only like terms I have here are the 1.037x and the 0.02x. So when I add those together, and we're going to add because there's a plus sign, I get 0.57x. And then the 25 is not a like term, so I'm just going to drop down this 25. And then on the other side, since I don't have any like terms, I'm just going to drop down this 30.285. Okay, so we combine like terms. Next step is to move variables over to the side. Well, I only get, oh my gosh, can't talk. I only have one variable and it's already on the left, so I don't need to move another variable over there. So I don't have to do that step. The next step is to move all of my constants to the other side that does not contain my variable. Okay, so I actually have two constants, okay? I have this one, 25, and the 30.285, okay? So since my variable is already over here, I want to move this 25 over to where the 30 is, so it's away from the variable. So since it's added, I'm going to subtract 25 from both sides. Now, these 25 over here will cancel to 0. And then I'm left on the left side with 1.057x. And then 30.285 minus 25 is 5.285. So I did that step. And then the last step is to multiply or divide by my coefficient. So I have my coefficient here of 1.057. It's being multiplied, so I need to divide it on both sides. These over here will cancel. X equals, and then I'm gonna do this division. So 5.285 divided by 1.057 equals 5. So in this step, you'll see that I only needed to do 3 of these steps. Okay, example 3 here. So we see that this is our first instance of parentheses. So we will have to do this first step of distributing. So make sure that when I distribute this number and its sign to the first term, the second term, every term that is just inside the parentheses. So this means I have negative 7 times 2r. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. Let me try my thing. Negative 14r. And then I have negative 7 times negative 1, which is a positive 7. And then I'm just going to rewrite this 35 here. So I have my whole new line. Now, my next step is to combine like terms. Well, if I look on the left, I have something that has an R and something that's a number. So these are not like terms. When I look to the right, I only have a number. So I don't have any like terms to combine. So I'm going to skip this second step. Next step is to move any variables that I have to one side. But again, I only have one variable and it's already on the right side. So I don't have to move anything else. So I have to skip that step. And then next is to move constants to the other side. So since my one variable is over here already, that means that I have to move my constant to the right. So the only constants I have on the left is 7, so I need to move 7 to the right. And the only way to move it is to subtract 7 from both sides. Once I do that, these 7s will cancel out. And I'm left with negative, wrong thing. I'm left with negative 14r. And then 35 minus 7 is 28. And my last step is to multiply or divide my coefficient. So since 14r is being multiplied, I need to divide off a 14, a negative 14 at that. So the negative 14s on the left will cancel to 1, and we left with an r. And then 28 divided by negative 14 leaves me a negative 2. Okay, this next problem also has distribution, so we're going to distribute first. This we are going to multiply by, remember this is a 1q and this is just a 2. So 0.025 times q is 0.025q. 0.025 times a positive 2 is going to be 0.05 equals, we're just going to have our 2.18 that we're going to bring down. Now we don't have any like terms on the left or right, and we don't have variables to move, but we do have constants that we need to move to the other side. So I'm going to subtract this 0.05 because it's positive. And then it will reduce to 0 here. On the left, I'm going to bring down my 0.025q. And then on the right, I'm going to subtract. So 2.81 minus 0.05 is 2.76. And then my last step is going to be to divide off my coefficient of 0.025. On both sides. These 0.025s on the left reduce to 1, leaving me with q equals 0.4 when I divide 2.76 divided by 0.025. Make sure that when you're dividing in the calculator, I've noticed some students, they will put the bottom number first, but this number always needs to come first. And then the one on the bottom always needs to come second when you're putting it into the calculator. And this is our last example. So we do have distribution again because we have parentheses. So this 3 we're going to multiply. Remember there's an invisible 1 in front of this x. And we're going to multiply to the first and to the second term. So 3 times 1x is 3x. 3 times 5 is 15. So the x and the 5 are the only thing inside the parentheses. So those are the only things I'm multiplying 3 by. this or this 6 that's being subtracted, we can just bring it down, okay? Because we don't need to distribute anything to that. It's not in the parentheses. And then we're also going to bring down the 21. My next step is to combine like terms on each side. Do I have any like terms to combine? Well, yes, I do. These two numbers here I can combine. And then remember, when I put these into the calculator, if I need to, I'm just going to do exactly 15 minus 6. So that leaves me with the 3x that I need to bring down. And then 15 minus 6 gives me a positive 9. And then I'm going to bring down my 21 on the right. I don't have any other variables. I only have the 3x, so I don't have to move any. And then my next step is to move constants to the other side. So I have this positive 9 that is on the side with the variables. So I'm going to move that by subtracting 9 on both sides. These 9s will go to 0 on the left. And then, which leaves me with the 3x on the left. Then on the right, I do 21 minus 9, which is 12. And last is to divide by this coefficient I have in the front. So I'm going to divide off 3 on both sides. So x is 4. At the end of this video, it asks you for a summary review, and I just want you to answer these 3 questions. 1 sentence per question is enough. So, what should you do first when parentheses are present in your equation? Why must you distribute to all terms in the parentheses? And then, what is one mistake to watch for when distributing a negative? So, again, 1 sentence per question is enough at the end of this review summary for this video.